Ladies, welcome. Today we're going to jump right into unlocking fat loss without restrictive diets. And it is one of the critical elements of being able to lose the weight and actually keep it off. Because if the process in which you lose the weight is not sustainable, then of course your results will not be sustainable. So in just a minute, we're going to dive right in. But really quickly, I want to recap the last couple of trainings. On the first foundations training, we talked about the power of applying God's word strategically to your health and your well-being. On day 2, we talked about the power of our thoughts and how critical it is that we take this understanding of for as a man thinks in his heart to heart and apply it to our health and well-being, our health and fitness in mind, body, and spirit as well. And so today we'll dive into some actual tactics. But if you missed the foundational training of the first foundational training or the second, don't worry, they don't have to tie all together, but I encourage you to go back, make sure you do not miss them, because that truly is part 1 and part 2 are the foundational work that is not talked about in 99% of the industry. So while I want you to have the brass tactics that you can start applying right away, if you don't also understand that core foundation, you can have all the best nutrition strategies, and yet they aren't going to allow you to actually get the result and then keep the result long-term. Because in those first 2 sessions, we talked about the fact that the food and the workouts is really just the tip of the pyramid. In fact, let me grab, just as a quick recap, maybe this is going to work. There we go. As a quick recap, I'm going to share with you the kink analogy. I'm going to go over this really quickly because we talked about this in detail. But we talked about the fact that when we apply the idea of this wedding cake to our health and fitness, each layer, each tier is the widest is at the foundation. The quality of that tier matters. The strength of it matters, as well as the width in order and depth in order to hold the strength of the next one, and so on and so forth. And so we talked about visually, the true foundation is our personal relationship with God and truly inviting him into our health and well-being and understanding the biblical reasons why self-care is not selfish, wanting a good body is not vain. It's actually the prerequisite to being able to be our best, do our best, give our best, have our best. Then we talked about the power of thoughts, and that walking through a journey of strategically applying them is going to be a critical factor, because our thoughts ultimately drive our emotions, our beliefs, which drive our choices, which drive our habits, which drive or the cumulative effect of creates our identity. So even with the practical strategies that we're going to talk about today, if you don't simultaneously shift your identity, sister, you could be a year in, 2 years in, and life is going to get busy, messy, hectic, hard. Something's going to happen, and you are going to revert back to the patterns that you have held longest and the identity that you most associate with. So you must both learn the strategic practices that I'm going to teach you today, as well as learn the first 2 layers and how to work with them strategically. We also talked about the power of 4 futures in the second day of training, and the fact that you are here now, today, and you are going to be somewhere this day, this time, next year. And what that journey looks like is entirely dependent on your choices. We talked about the fact that you have the potential of having 4 potential outcomes in this analogy. The top right box is the greatest expression of your God-given potential in mind, body, and spirit. In our sisterhood, we talk about that as becoming her, kingdom fit. Side effect is the rockin' body that you feel amazing in. And the bottom box is worst case scenario. It's super important to connect with both the vision of the future and the real raw truth of your biggest, greatest fear if you don't do this now. Because one of the challenges that women have to get on the line and stay on the green line is they fall back into the drift too easily. You've already started to be on the green line because you were here, you're watching this now. And yet, as soon as the further you walk away from this training, as further that you walk away from the repetition, as we do inside our Kingdom Fit Sisterhood, we talk about we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. That you become, the further you move away from that and the remembrance of it, the more susceptible you are to falling into the drift. And that is why women repeat patterns year after year, week after month after month, week after week, what have you, year after year. And you wake up 5 years later and you're actually more in the drift than you were 5 years ago. Yes, yes. And that is not what you need to settle for. Aging gracefully does not mean settling for status quo. We are better than that. We're called to be higher than that. We are called to be women of kingdom excellence. Loving ourselves exactly where we are, no judgment, no condemnation of ourselves or others, and also always reaching for the next best iteration. Yes, yes? So with that, let's dive into what is the practical strategies. Let me move some stuff around for nutrition. And the reason, as I started to say in the beginning, that this is so important is because if the process is not sustainable, then your results will not be as sustainable. There's a number of factors, but of course your foods play a role. So I want you to understand that diets do not work. And I know that diet culture and the fitness industry, the quote unquote health and wellness industry, has perpetuated this belief that you just need this diet or this pill or this product, or now it's this shot, or remove your carbs, or all of these factors. And the reality is you can do a very quick Google search and learn for yourself that statistically 95% of all diets fail. Statistically, 95% of people that go on some form of a quote unquote diet, meaning it's something that is short term, they've not decided, people will say, for example, that keto worked for me until. Sister, if there is an until on the other side of that, then that did not work for you. Because I don't know about you, but working for you does not mean losing the weight and regaining it again. Losing the weight and then losing it all. Losing all self-control every time the holidays hit or a birthday comes up. That is not working. That is not a lifestyle. That is diet after diet after diet, even if it's in the same wrapper every time. And I want you to know that despite what diet industry and culture and fitness, most of the fitness will tell you, is that it is not your fault. It is the process. Most of what is available to you is not tailored first and foremost to optimal health, and also certainly not tailored to Christian women over 40. So the reason they fail is because it's not teaching you, number one, is it's not teaching you a life process that is sustainable. So of course, as soon as you do keto or you do something super restrictive, or Optavia, I can't even tell you how many times I've worked with clients of really every form and fashion, you name it. I have either experienced it myself or coached a woman through it after the fact, after she tried it and felt like she failed, right? And the reality is that if the process is not sustainable, the results will not be sustainable. So of course, if you can't see yourself doing it for the rest of your life, you're not going to be able to get the results for the rest of your life. Not to mention the metabolic damage that it's doing. Most of them are doing in the process. One of the clients that comes to mind is, I always change her name because I love and adore her. And she struggled with the fact that she was on Optavia for 3 years and she had built a business out of it. She's an amazing, strong woman. She's of high integrity. And yet she realized after 3 years into it that she had started to regain. She did lose a lot of weight. She lost 60, 70 pounds, I think. But then she started to regain the weight. And so she came to me and she's like, I don't know. It's not working anymore. Nothing seems to be working. I don't know what to do. As a result of working together, she realized not only had the system slowed down her metabolism, so she got to learn how to fuel her body so that she did have more energy, so that she could heal her metabolism and begin losing the body fat again. But she also realized that she had created all of these food rules and food restrictions around what she was called to eat on a daily basis. So she had built up all of these food fears related to what she was eating or what she wasn't eating. And that was spiraling her in that she had a family, Southern families close, lived in close proximity of each other, always getting together, on a pretty regular basis, nearly weekly, to have a dinner together or something along those lines. And then beating herself up if she took a cookie off the counter, or felt like she had lost her self-control because if she has one, she can't have more. And what you'll hear me talk about often is that we get to check those thoughts or those words with God's word, because the reality is he says we have self-control. So if we're not accessing it, just like we talked about in day one with the analogy of the hollow pipe, right? The hollow pipe is the vehicle in which we receive God's presence, word, understanding, wisdom, all of those things, but we get in our own way. So his living word, his living water doesn't flow through it purely because there's stuff that we've put in the way. Part of that is our own self-condemnation. Part of it is then amplified by society, or of course the enemy himself loves to amplify it. So number one reason why diets don't work is because if the process is not sustainable, the results are not sustainable. Just like so many other women that do Optavia or some sort of shot or something along those lines, there may be a time or a place. I'm not totally against those things. There might be a time or a place to leverage it as a sprint, right? Meaning you're leveraging the fact that you don't have to think about cooked food. You can, maybe you're using a meal ordering service, or somebody that is extremely overweight and has a lot of health conditions and can't seem to access the self-control. They might need something like a GLP-1 to help reduce the body fat while they are learning better habits. There's more to that, though. You got to be careful because you can also still be slowing your metabolism down if you don't know how to leverage it correctly, all that kind of stuff. So the second reason that diets do not work is because of the fact that they don't address the root cause. So the root cause is not the food. We started talking about this on day 2. For as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. No one's forcing you to put that food that you know doesn't do well for your body in your mouth. No one is forcing you to, not eat or ruminate over the foods that you did consume the day before. And so then you think, well, I didn't do great yesterday, so I might as well just start over again on Monday. Those things are rooted in your thoughts and your belief. There is a root cause that has created this pattern. This is why we talk about, especially in Kingdom Fit Academy, really do the deeper work in what is the root cause, so that we can discover those roots, pull them out, expose them to light, and decide what to do with them. Reject, reframe, renew, right? And in doing so, that's a process. It takes time, but the awareness is the first step. So we actually start to do some of that even in Kingdom Fit Foundations, as we start to learn how to strategically, through just daily devotionals, learning how to strategically apply God's word to your health and fitness. Yes, yes? And the third reason diets fail and actually set you up for further failure when it comes, in my world, failure is not a bad word, by the way. In my world, failure means you learned what didn't work. You only truly fail if you quit, or if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, sister. Well, that's not even failure. That's insanity. We know that, right? So understanding that every time you do something incredibly restrictive, like the really low calories, or which that is the core of it. The one thing that all of these different systems and pills and products have is there some sort of extreme caloric deficit. And so anyone at any point in time with the right caloric deficit is going to move the scale number for a period of time. The challenge is that the more times you do that, if you don't know how to leverage getting back on track, or knowing when you need to maybe heal your metabolism or reverse diet or those types of things, every single time you try and do the same thing you did before that seemed to work for you in your 20s and 30s, well, it might have moved the scale for you, but in the process, if you're not getting energy your body needs from food, and if you aren't supplementing your regiment with strength training that's helping you build muscle, which drives your metabolism, we naturally lose muscle over at starting in our mid 30s. And so we must strength train just to keep up with time and just keep up with aging. Now, if you're not strength training and you've done really restrictive diets for years, then your body is going to get energy wherever it needs to, because it's designed to help you survive. And muscle has a lot more energy than body fat. So whereas you take, we'll just use generic examples, let me do bigger math, a 200-pound woman, and she has 110 25 pounds of muscle, whatever it is, 75 pounds of fat. So she starts losing weight, but if it's extremely restrictive, she might be losing weight. She could be losing 50 pounds, but half of that or more is actually going to be the very lean muscle tissue that was helping her drive her metabolism in the first place. And that lean muscle tissue is not easy to build. You can do it. You can start at any age, but all of these factors come into play. So diets clearly don't work. I looked over at my notes and lost it for a second. And the solution is to leverage macronutrients. Now, if you also, if you're watching this because you're in the challenge and you signed up for VIP, you also have access to a more detailed macros course workshop, I should say. And also, I'm gonna give you the high level overview today. Understanding that sometimes I hear women say, well, I tried macros too and they didn't work for me. Here's what did not work. What did not work is you, again, not by your own design, you didn't know better, but now you will, tried some sort of generic calculator or template and tried to apply it to yourself. So within our Kingdom Fit nutrition method, one of the things I teach women is how to establish what your actual baseline is, and then learn how to become a student of your mind and body so that you can start seeing physical results, start increasing energy. It's actually one of the things that will also help you reduce perimenopause symptoms, and do that in a way that feels sustainable. So you're seeing the physical relief, you're seeing the fat loss, you're seeing the physical relief, you're not giving up your favorite foods, you're not spending crazy hours doing cardio, you're giving your body exactly what it needs in order for it to function optimally, which means fat loss and also longevity. We're not just talking about a number on the scale, we're talking about your quality of your health, your quality of your mind and brain function. It all ties together. And when we think about macronutrients, if you don't know what those are, you can think of them as God's natural food groups. Macronutrients break down into 3 categories. There are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Generally speaking, when I refer to proteins, I mean a whole protein animal source. Things like chicken, lean ground turkey, beef in moderation, depending on what your blood work is and all that good stuff. Those are examples of protein sources. Then within carbohydrates, there's different levels of how this is going to break down in your system. So if you are consuming packaged processed food, or even fast digesting carbohydrates like breads and pastas, what's happening is your body is breaking the food down and it is going through your system in a way that is causing your blood sugar to rise really fast. And what causes your blood sugar to rise really fast will also drop really fast to move that on. But your muscle energy reservoir is really shallow. Whatever isn't used in that muscle energy reservoir is moving onto body fat. Not to mention that these peaks, highs and lows, is also what leads to dis-ease like type 2 diabetes, like inflammation, which again will amplify, not to mention, type 2 diabetes and all those other things, but even the inflammation, chronic inflammation is going to amplify your perimenopause symptoms now. And they're now saying that chronic inflammation is one of the leading factors of cognitive decline. And I don't know about you, but Alzheimer's and dementia run in my family. So that's been another aspect that I've been nerding out for the last several years, because it will not be my story. Just because something is genetically in your line, you have a choice, but you must choose it sooner rather than later. Yes, yes? So so you've got proteins, carbohydrates. So carbohydrates that you would want to to focus on would be things like oats, yams, some types of rice, quinoa. Those are going to be kind of this, I want to say like the heartier carbs. And then of course, vegetables have a little bit, but not anything to be too concerned about especially if it's green leafy vegetables. And then fruits have carbohydrates also. We're not going to go into detail as to how to balance that out and what to figure out in this training, but to build an awareness that what you want to focus on when you think about carbohydrates is slower digesting carbohydrates. Now, having said that, the next thing is healthy fats. So healthy fats, no seed oils. If you did not know that, I keep thinking most people do, but every once in a while come across people that don't understand that yet. So no canola oil, no seed oils. You want to look for oil when it comes to healthy fats and oils, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil. You can think of nuts and seeds as a good fat source. Of course, avocado is a good fat source. And so those are your primary categories. And what you get to do in my program, and what I invite you to do, is this: figure out what your baseline is now. And then once you figure out what your baseline is, then you can use one of the well-respected calculators to determine what that delta is and how to adjust it. And that's what we walk through in the Kingdom Fit Metabolic Reset process. We'll teach you how to strategically go through that process. And again, we'll talk about it a little bit in the masterclass. And so you'll have all the tools, not the masterclass, sorry, the macro bonus for those of you that are on VIP. If you're watching this as part of the 5-day or as the foundations training, if you're not VIP and you want to upgrade, or you're not sure what I'm talking about, just message and say macros, and I'll get you into that. Okay. So in the meantime, without going into the detail of how to break that down, what I can share with you today, it's simple and to the point, is when you want to start shifting to macronutrients, which in my opinion, this is the way to live as a lifestyle. It is eating as close to the ground or the animal as possible, learning God's 3 food groups, and fueling your body according to what you need. Here's the thing that I started to explain on the calculators, is there are very well-respected calculators. There's, 4 or 5 of them, what have you, that have had a ton of research and science put behind them in order for them to get there. Here's the thing with any research, it is based on a core population of people that they decided to run this simulation on. You aren't generic. You aren't the sum average of a core group of people. And so the choices that you have made, and most of us that are drawn to me are late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So that means we have decades of choices that have modified how our hormones, our metabolism, our neurons, all of those things, how those are wiring and firing to give us those specific results that we're looking for. And your choices, my choices, means that even if I'm the same woman, same age, same height, same weight, there's what works for the woman that has the exact same what's the word I'm looking for? Parameters as I do, is going to have a very different response in her body to the quality of foods, quantity of foods, types of foods. It was one of the things for me over 40 that got to shift. Healthy foods that I had eaten for decades, my body was now responding to with inflammation. So that was a process in and of itself. So it's really important that you become a student of your mind and body. Now, where you can start is looking at keeping it simple. Start with prioritizing your protein. So literally later, like whether you're watching this morning, afternoon, your next meal, just look at your plate and go, do I have a quality protein source? And is that taking up the majority of my plate? Prioritize your protein. Work to getting a protein in with every meal. There's tons of IG influencers now that say you need 30 grams at every meal, blah, 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 and this. That is also generic. The 100 grams of protein, I don't know where that came from. That is also generic. Generally speaking, you want about, and this is generally speaking, a gram of protein per body pound of your desired weight. Okay? But again, that would mean weighing, measuring, all those kinds of things. So a simple place to start is look at your plate, ask yourself, do I have quality protein on here? And does it take up the majority of my plate? Okay? The second is to start tracking. It takes practice over time. I know that so many women come like, oh, I hate tracking, and kind of have this negative connotation. Like anything else, it is a habit that when it's new, you're going to stink at it until you don't stink as much. And then you're going to be somewhat decent at it. And then it's going to be second nature to where you don't even think about it. I still track my food every day because I know that when I'm mindful and I'm paying attention, that is when I feel my best. If I go periods of time without tracking or out paying attention, then it impacts how I show up, how I feel, how I think, how I perform, which means it's impacting how I'm showing up for myself, for the call that God has on my life in the daily details, how I'm showing up for my family, and so on and so forth. Yes? So don't overthink it. Just start tracking your food. It is not restriction when we have parameters The parameters actually give us freedom. Another example of why I still track is if something does feel off in my body, even though I might be at my ideal body composition right now, or like where I want to be, if something starts to feel off in my body, I can go back and look. And this is again what we teach within my Kingdom Fit method. What might have been the factors that led to extra inflammation or whatever it is, brain fog, whatever it is that's coming up. So it's really important to practice beginning to track your foods so that you build this awareness of how it's impacting you. And the third, I actually already shared. It was the 1 gram of protein per body weight, desired body weight. Now, here's what I want to, so with that, let me tell you what I just told you really quickly. One, we talked about the fact that it's super important that if you are just finding this video, you go back and you watch the foundational training 1 and 2. We talked about why that's so important to integrate God's word into your health and well-being strategically. We talked about how on the second training, the power of our thoughts, for as a man thinks in his heart, so is he, is the critical foundation. And we talk about why that is so important and why you want to begin to understand that that is just as much a part of your health and wellness journey. And then today we talked about why diets don't work and what to do instead. Diets aren't sustainable. You can do a quick Google search. It slows your metabolism. It isn't lifestyle friendly. So you hit a holiday or a birthday and you fall off track. And most of the diets out there, 99% of them that are diets are going to slow your metabolism down, making it harder every single time for you to release the weight. So there's a process that you then need to reverse engineer in order to start seeing results again. Yes. But you're going to focus on working towards macronutrient awareness, focusing on your proteins, focus on tracking your foods, and prioritize. The next step would be to start tracking your proteins and realizing that you want about 1 gram per body pound of your desired weight. Yes. Now here's a visual that I want to help anchor this in for you guys today. Super important. We'll just leave it like that for now. This exercise is called, let me find my pen real quick. Okay. Yesterday, or depending on when you watch it, maybe it wasn't yesterday, we talked about the top box being that ideal. One of the things that's going to help you connect with that vision of the future, Habakkuk 2:2-3, applies to your health and well-being as well. And we also talked about the fact that, because you're drawn to me, I know that you are doing your best to seek him first each and every day, that you are doing your best to abide in him and him in you, that you are then rest assured that the desires of your heart are the desires he's given you, and that includes your health and well-being. So then in Habakkuk 2:2-3 talks about writing the vision and make it plain. This is the process that we are going to go through. And the reason this is important is because your brain needs a target. We also talked a little bit about how God designed our brain to keep us safe. And 95% of your thoughts are automated. They're on repeat, because part of what keeping you safe means is to automate as many thoughts, functions as possible. And you're only dealing with 5% of conscious thought. You're only aware of 5% of your thoughts on any given day. And if you do not give your brain, there's another portion of our brain called the reticular activation system, RAS. You can Google that too. It has a target, and it is looking for evidence that is going to get you to that target or support that target or give you the belief that that target is true and real. And so if you are not intentionally giving it a target, then it is defaulting to the 95% that you say you no longer want. So when we do this exercise, this is why it's critically important. On the left side, you are going to take a piece of paper, and on the left side, you are going to take a line out just a little bit and then all the way down. On the right side, much higher in the paper, you're going to take a line out from the right. Oops, that's not happened before. And then bring it all the way down. On the left-hand side, this is where you are today. Write down everything that caused you to listen in. Like, you've done phenomenal. Whether you've gotten this far in the training or you've watched all 3, like, you are taking action. What drove you to take action today? What is bothering you? And I encourage you to pause this, give yourself some time to think about it. A lot of times women will say to me, like, I know for me, I was just sick and tired of feeling sick and tired all the time. It was that dread of 3 to 5 outfit changes every single morning, starting with, and you normalize it so you don't even realize that's happening, but starting the morning every single morning with stress and anxiety of what you're going to wear and what's going to fit and how's it going to feel and what do I have to do today and is that really going to be comfortable, or hiding from your spouse because you don't feel comfortable in your body and you don't like being touched right now. Looking at the mirror and feeling like, I've heard women say, like, I feel like a fat, ugly pig. I don't know what happened to me. Where did I go? What's happening? All of those things, I encourage you to get super real with yourself and spend some time on it and write it down. John Assaraf, I did some work with him too in neuroscience, but when we put pen to paper, it helps our brain recognize what we're saying and the emotion attached to it. The reason that is important on the left side is because one of the reasons women stay caught in the drift of distraction, discouragement, is because they've normalized, they've minimized, and they are avoiding the pain of what it is costing them to be where they are right now. So it's important that you take some time to get real with yourself. On the right-hand side, you're writing the vision of the future. What does it look like to be at that ideal vision of who you are called to be? Mind, body, and spirit. What does that look like? How do you feel? You're walking into the closet, you're getting up in the morning, you're like, wow, I feel really good. I slept good. I feel awake. I don't know if I even need caffeine today. You go into the closet and you're like, wow, this is cool. You're just like pulling that 2 sizes smaller that you never thought you'd get back into, or like you're on whatever site that you shop on, Nordstrom, and looking for the next size or a new dress, and you're like excited because you know at this point that you just have to order it and it's going to fit and it's going to look amazing on you. You are walking past the mirror and you're like, dang girl, you look good. You did a good job, sister. You're initiating intimacy with your husband. What are those moments? Write them out. Write the emotion attached to it, and write out who else is benefiting when you are there. How has your relationship with your spouse improved? How has your leadership for yourself and for your kids improved? What's different about your work? What's different about your business? Write all of that out here. And then pause again. And I want you to give yourself time to think about, what is it costing you to not be there? What is the actual cost? And try and give it a summary, but put words to it. Some women have come to me saying, I know I have a book in me, but I keep hiding and I keep shrinking because I have all this self-doubt and self-thinking. If I can't even take care of my own health, how is it that I'm going to write this book? I have women tell me that they shrink from doing Zooms or doing trainings when they own their own business, even though they know that they're called to speak, that they're called to teach in this way. They shrink because they don't like the reflection of the Zoom. They shrink because they're worried about the double chin, right? On Zoom meetings, women kind of playing smaller even in corporate environments when they jump on Zoom, because they're looking at this reflection and it's a constant distraction. So what is it costing you to not be there? What is it costing you to not be experiencing the fullness of who you were called to be in mind, body, and spirit? And get really real with that. And like I said, the reason this is important is because it is difficult to get on the green line. It's even harder to stay on the green line. And what I have found to be true is that you stay on it with intentional, decisive action. However, it requires you having a proven plan. This is the journey that we take inside our Kingdom Fit Sisterhood with different levels of access depending on where you come in at. But we talk about the importance of being able to have that vision, making it plain, and making the choices that are going to align with it. But here's what I know. A confused mind does not take action. You need a success-proven plan that is going to be custom for you so that you learn and become that student of your mind and body, so that ideally you learn what nutrition is going to support you best, what self-care habits is going to help reduce your perimenopause symptoms, and then you live it for a lifetime. No more diets, no more backsliding. You also, what I have found to be true is we stay in the green line with intentional, decisive action when we are supported by a like-minded community. The buddy system does not work. The buddy has a bad day, you have a bad day, you plant a seed for the other one, your husband, your best friend might have the best of intentions, but there's not real accountability there. When you show up in a like-minded sisterhood, you get inspired by them. They lift you up when you're having a bad day. You are on a common mission with common goals. And for this specific aspect of life, it's so important to have those containers for each aspect of life. And not only that, having an iron sharpens iron coach. Hello, that would be me. The reason this is so critically important, sister, is because in my 20 years of personal development, 15 years as an entrepreneur, building businesses, and just working on myself to become a better woman and a better woman of God, the most insightful, pivotal times in my growth has been when I have worked with coaches who were powerful truth tellers. I noticed that pretty early on. So now I have a very much like no fluff boundary standard or what have you. And I will only work with powerful coaches that are going to have courage to speak truth into my life. And I invite you to do the same. So whether you're watching this video inside one of our groups, or maybe I don't know exactly where all this is going to land, this particular video, but I invite you to reach out and inquire about joining our sisterhood. Our Kingdom Fit Sisterhood is the vision that God gave me for creating one powerful collective of driven Christian women who are amazing just as they are. And also, you want to continually be reaching for becoming her, the Kingdom Fit identity, greatest expression of your God-given potential. Side effect, a rockin' body that you feel amazing in. But knowing and understanding that your health and your well-being is the foundation. So if that is you, reach out, DM, comment below, wherever you see it, comment sisterhood, and let's connect and find out what's available, what's open at the time that you're connecting, and what is the best next step for you personally. Walk you through it. So with that, I'm going to close out this session. I, of course, encourage you to take the time to do this work. This is the work that will allow you to get the most out of these 4 trainings. And I'll see you on the other side. On the next one, we're going to talk about perimenopause. I'm going to share with you specifically what my experience was so that you know better, so you can be more aware, be your own advocate, because I did not know this when I started. And once again, I get to collapse time for you in the learning curve and save you from frustration and hopefully pain and discomfort, because I can move you through it further faster. So I'm going to share with you my experience and what I did to naturally, dramatically reduce my perimenopause symptoms, pretty much crush them over the last several years. So with that, love you guys so much. Appreciate your time and attention. It's important to me. Would love to hear what resonated with you most. What was your biggest takeaway? What did you learn from today? Bye for now.